Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Hummel, and I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, sitting here with my friend Jim Liban, who is a great, great harmonica player, composer, singer, entertainer, the whole ball of wax. So, welcome, Jim.
The wonder of me.
That's enough about me. What do you think of me?
Yeah, have seen any good movies lately?
He's also my movie buddy. He goes to see all the things I go to see. So anyway, this is Mark Hummel's Harmonica Party, and I want to just ask you a few questions. Like, you grew up in Milwaukee or Wisconsin?
Yeah, Milwaukee. Yeah.
Milwaukee. Okay. So now, were your parents into music at all?
My mother literally did toot on the harmonica.
Really?
Yes. But I never was drawn to her tooting on the harmonica. I started, but she was very supportive of my artistic bents, in proclivities, and early on, it was obvious to them and to me that I had some artistic stuff going on, and then that which also morphed into musical stuff.
Mm-hmm. So did you draw and stuff?
I did.
Yeah.
I was a pretty good artist when I was a kid.
Yeah. That's a common thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I have come across that with other musicians also.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I got interested in the drums. That was my first instrument.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that came about, I think, by watching the Mickey Mouse Club when I was a kid.
Really?
And there was a kid on the Mickey Mouse Club named Cubby O'Brien. He was one of the Mouseketeers.
Huh.
And his special talent was as a drummer.
Huh.
And he actually went on to have a professional drum career after he left the Mickey Mouse Club.
Wow.
But I was so impressed by what he did on the drums that I wanted to be Cubby.
Huh.
So I started, my parents started buying me one piece at a time.
And now your son's a drummer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he kind of picked it up and ran with it much more than I did. But I played drums all the way through grade school and high school.
Really?
In my first rock and roll band, I was a drummer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember hearing that.
Yeah, and then I got interested in the harmonica while I was still playing drums in high school when the British invasion happened. And there obviously were a lot of bands coming over here that were blues based and were employing the harmonica. And it just caught my ear. Just something about it spoke to me. And I started monkeying around with the harmonica when I was about 16.
Okay.
And I continued to play drums, but
So did you just go from drums to harmonica in the band you were in, or
well,
how did that work?
The rock and roll band I was in, I got somewhat proficient on the harmonica. I would step away from the drums maybe for a song or two a night, and one of the other guys would sit down at the drums, and I would come up front and play the harmonica.
Right. Were you singing at that time?
No,
too?
not at all.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I didn't start singing till later.
So, how long would you say it took you to get from, just starting out on the harmonica to being good enough to really think of yourself as a harp player?
Yeah. Well, after I got out of high school, I decided to leave the drums behind and just concentrate on the harmonica. And I would say probably when I was about 19,
okay,
I felt, I guess, good enough to start.
So about 3 years.
Yeah. Roughly. And there was a coffee house on the east side of Milwaukee called the Avant-Garde.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of
A lot of people played there.
Yes, tons of people, mostly country blues musicians, but from time to time they would bring up like Magic Sam,
or
Charlie Musselwhite would come up with Walter Horton, and Johnny Young would come up with Walter, and that was my introduction to the real deal blues. And during that period, I had the opportunity to sit in with a lot of these guys. You know, I was just a snot-nosed 19-year-old white kid. You know.
Yeah, someone just told me a story about you sitting in with Sleepy John Estes.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
I sat in with Sleepy John.
Right.
I sat in with Big Joe Williams.
Wow.
With Arthur Crudup.
Whoa.
With Yank Rachel.
Too much.
And you know, once again, I look back on it now, and I just go, holy, can I swear?
Sure you can.
Holy shit! These guys, they didn't know me from Adam,
right? And
they would let me sit in.
That is amazing, yeah.
And you know, I mean. But I look at it now as kind of, you know, it was part of the tradition. So
these guys would let you sit in.
And as part of the blues tradition.
Right.
You know, that's how, I'm sure that's probably how they learned too.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the proprietors of the club was a huge audiophile, and he used to tape all of the acts that came in. And there are tapes out there of me playing with these people.
Wow!
I've heard them, and folks, they make me cringe because I didn't know very much back then. I thought I did. You know, really? I thought I was God's gift to the harmonica.
Yeah.
But you know, I've heard them, and you know, I had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
You know. But
were you listening to all the icons at that time?
I was, and you can hear some of that in my playing. But it was very, you know, it was just early on in my career, and I was just trying to find my way. It was you know, just like all of us, you know, I was just hunting and pecking.
But you got out there pretty quick.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, I know you told me that. What was the first band that you said you went out to San Francisco with?
Okay, during this time of the avant-garde,
right,
which was in my late teens, I got noticed by a keyboard player. Who came down to listen to the music one night, and I must have been playing with somebody, and he approached me and he asked me if I would be interested in joining their band, their blues band, which at the time they called themselves the New Blues. And this keyboard player ultimately went out to San Francisco to play with Steve Miller.
Oh, really? Who was that?
Jim Peterman.
Okay, that's not the guy that played. There was another guy. Okay. Well, I'm confused.
Yeah, he was in Steve's first band.
Right.
In California.
All right. Yeah.
So he left to go out to California. I'm playing with this band, the New Blues, and of course at that time, I mean, we're talking about the late '60s. So at that time, San Francisco was the center of the musical world.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
It was just crawling with musicians. And obviously some of the most iconic musicians of that time were congregating.
Was this 67?
We left out. We went out there in 68.
68.
Yeah.
Okay.
We played around here for a while, and then we decided to make the move.
Right.
Because a lot of guys from Wisconsin were going out there. In fact, in Steve Miller's first band, there was Tim Davis, who was from Wisconsin.
Right.
Jimmy Peterman.
Right.
And I think the bass player wasn't. But so and Curly Cook. Jim Cook was also from Wisconsin. So Steve Miller's first band in San Francisco had 3 Wisconsin guys.
Now, did Steve had some roots in Wisconsin because of Madison, right?
Yes, and apparently, I don't know all the chronology of Steve's life, but he apparently did live here at one point.
In Milwaukee?
In Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
You know, and he did go to school in Madison.
Right.
So he met a lot of musicians.
I know he met Boz in Madison.
Yeah. And so once again, when he moved out to San Francisco, he, you know, gravitated towards the guys that he played with here.
Right.
And they eventually moved out and formed, you know, the Steve Miller Band.
Wow.
In fact, when Steve Miller, before he moved to California, I remember him playing around here, or in Chicago especially,
right.
As the Steve Miller Blues Band.
Right.
And once he got out to California, he dropped the blues.
I don't know. He might have had that for
a little
California.
while.
Yeah.
Made for a little while.
Yeah.
But eventually, he obviously dropped it.
Right.
But
right.
he took Paul Butterfield's spot at Big John's.
Oh, I think I had heard that.
Yeah. When Butterfield left Big John's, Steve moved in and took the spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
But anyway, so we decided to move out to San Francisco. Followed all the people that were going out there.
Right.
And the first week we were there, while we were trying to find a place of our own to live, we stayed at Steve's place.
Really?
He put us
wow.
Up, put us up
Too
there.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Found our own place, and pretty much immediately. Well, we added a keyboard player when we were out there. We went out there as a quartet, and the guitar player, one of the guitar players that we were working with here, didn't want to go out there. He didn't want to make the move. So we went out there. He stayed here, and we went out there, and we picked up a keyboard player out there who also happened to be from Wisconsin, by the guy by the name of Howie Wales. So then, and he was a brilliant, just absolutely in orbit B3 player. I mean, all of his heroes were, McDuff and McGriff.
And all the heavy guys.
Oh my God! And he could play that stuff, and he could kick pedals. Although we had a bass player, but he could kick pedals too.
That's something.
In fact, he took me to see McDuff in Oakland one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was my first introduction to see Jack McDuff.
Who was playing guitar? Do you remember?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
But I just remember Howie,
Yeah.
he was watching McDuff kick pedals, and I can do that.
Oh, that's pretty impressive, man. To be able to kick pedals,
but
that's
he
a
could,
big deal.
He could back it up.
He could back it up. Yeah,
he was heads above the rest of the guys in the
Right.
band as far as a evolved, jazz blues
Yeah.
type of guy.
Oh yeah.
He was absolutely brilliant.
Wow.
He after the band broke up, he got together with Jerry Garcia and did an album with Jerry
Really?
Garcia. The
Wow.
two,
What's his name again?
Howard Wales. They did an album called Hooter Roll with
Okay.
In fact, I've even heard interviews with Garcia where he talked about playing with Howard. And,
Wow.
And he even said Howard was just out of our league.
Yeah.
He was so far.
That's something.
Beyond.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, he was. In fact, so anyway, we got picked up by the Family Dog.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Chet Helms.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
They took us under their wing.
Wow.
And we immediately started playing up and down the coast, playing down as far as LA and up into Portland.
Yeah.
And we would play a lot of package shows. And we played the Avalon Ballroom. We played with all the icons of that time.
Right.
And,
right. Quicksilver. And
all of them.
Airplane.
Moby Grape and the Grateful Dead and
Sons of Champlin.
Sons of Champlin, Lee Michaels, Taj Mahal.
Wow.
It was dizzying.
I bet.
And for me being I was younger than all the other guys in the band.
Yeah.
It was pretty overwhelming for me. Then you add all the drug use, the substances,
women.
It was. Yeah. Well, I went out there with the woman that was eventually became my wife. In fact, we got married out there.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But it was insane. It was a whirlwind.
Were you guys living in the Haight at the time?
Well, not right in the Haight, but
near.
Yeah, we lived in a few different places while we were there that I remember. I remember, going to the hardware store in San Francisco and bumping into Janis Joplin in the hardware store.
All these different people,
And I went up to her, naively. I went up to her and I told her who I was and that I play harmonica. And if she ever needed a harmonica player, give me a call. Of course, I didn't know she had Pigpen at the time playing harmonica. But that was the scene. You go to the hardware store and bump into Janis Joplin. When we were we would go down to the Family Dog would book us at the Whiskey at Go-Go in
Right.
L.A.
Isn't that where Hendrix saw you guys?
Yeah, that's where all that happened. I
Right.
mean,
Now, were you guys A.B. Sky by that time?
by that time we had changed our name to
Right.
A.B. Sky.
Right. And you guys weren't there a couple albums that came out?
The band did 2 albums. The
Two
second album I had left during the recording of the first album.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was pretty much a blues purist.
Right.
And the band, God bless them, were being influenced. The band was being influenced by all the psychedelic
Right.
stuff that was
Right.
going on.
So that kind of
And the music started
changed it,
evolving
Right.
to incorporate a lot of that stuff.
right
And I didn't like it.
went in your bag. Yeah.
I was young, hot-headed, and
Yeah.
I threw a hissy fit in the studio in L.A.
Now, who was your producer? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember his name offhand. I'm having a senior.
Do you remember what label it was?
Yeah, we were on MGM.
Wow. Okay. So you're on a major label.
Well, and that all happened because of Hendrix.
Really?
So let me back up a
yeah,
little bit.
okay.
We were playing at the Whiskey. We were opening up for Three Dog Night.
Wow.
Three Dog Night was doing their inaugural.
They must have been brand new.
They were. This was their coming out party.
Wow.
And they were playing the weekend.
Yeah.
And we were the opening act. And so we did our thing. Three Dog Night came on, and then we closed the show.
Mm-hmm.
And in the closing set, the buzz started happening in the room that Hendrix was in the club.
Mm-hmm.
So I just remember hearing the buzz. Hendrix is in the club.
Right. Right.
But we went and did our thing. So there was no contact with Hendrix that night. But the next night, the same thing happened, and on our set, Hendrix approached the band, and he asked us if he could sit in with us.
Wow.
I mean, because he was a blues guy.
Yeah.
At the core, he was a blues guy, and he dug what we were doing.
How did he sound with you guys?
Well, what I remember of it, I mean, the thing I remember the most is that Jimmy, he had his guitar. He came up on stage. He plugged in, and he just took his arm and he just went across all the controls, the pots,
right,
and just turned everything up to fucking 10.
Yeah.
And then we started playing, and I think we did about 3 songs, but the song I remember the most was Hoochie Coochie Man.
Right.
And at some point during Hoochie Coochie Man, Jimmy and I were eyeball to eyeball.
Right.
We were trading riffs.
Right.
That's what I remember the most.
That's pretty exciting.
And and after the 3 songs, he took his guitar and left, and we were all going, whoa, that was pretty.
Did that just happen?
Yeah. But here's the thing, Mark. I was such a blues Nazi that it was exciting, because Jimmy was a major star at that point, but I would have been more thrilled had it been Muddy Waters.
Right, or Buddy Guy or somebody like that. Yeah.
So I kind of sloughed it off.
Right, right.
Well, anyway, the story continues where shortly after that, Jimmy was being interviewed by Billboard. And the interviewer asked him, who are some of the bands on the scene that we should be looking out for? And he rattled off about a half a dozen bands, and we were one of them.
Wow.
And somebody at MGM saw that. And,
wow.
And that's how we got signed up.
Amazing.
On the strength of it.
That's pretty heavy, yeah. It's very heavy. Well, that story's followed you around.
Yes, well, yes, and rightly so. Now, in retrospect, I appreciate the importance of that, at the time, like I say, I would have been more thrilled than Muddy.
So how long were you in the band? Like a couple of years?
Well, I was in the band for a year or 2 before we left here.
Right, before you left.
And then out there, I was in the band for about a year.
About a year, okay. So basically 68 to 69?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And did you guys do any tours? Well, you're mainly doing the West Coast,
right,
it sounds like.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was all through Chet Helms.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. So you must have played that other Family Dog, too. Did you play the one out on the highway? Because they moved. At one point, the Avalon closed, I think, and they had something right on the Great Highway, like Chateau something. Or
I don't have a recollection.
that might have been after.
Yeah.
That might have been after. Yeah. Yeah, that's what
So anyway, I
Yeah.
you know, by that time I was married, and my
Uh-huh.
wife was pregnant with my son,
Mhm.
and I was, you know, once again, you know, a hothead, and here I quit the band. I got no job. My
Yeah.
wife is pregnant,
Wow.
and I immediately just, you know, and I was pretty kind of freaked out by it all, and
The whole scene.
the whole scene.
Yeah, yeah.
And I decided to move back here, and
Mhm.
so we moved back here. And after about 6 months back here, the next band I was in was Short Stuff.
Right, which was a very, very famous band around.
Well, regionally it was
Regionally, yeah.
We played mostly what I consider the 5-state area, you know, with Wisconsin, Minnesota,
Right.
Iowa, Michigan, Illinois, and then we would do East Coast tours.
Would you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we would go up into Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the farthest we ever got was the Virgin Islands.
Okay.
But
Now, were you guys on a major label for a minute? Or?
no, we
Okay.
eventually got signed to an independent label here.
Okay.
And they recorded us, but they had a lot of money. They were hooked up with one of the heirs of the Fort Howard Paper Company up in Green Bay, which is a huge paper mill.
Wow.
And one of the guys wanted to be in the rock. One of the sons wanted to be, you know, in the biz. He wanted
Right.
to be in the rock and roll biz,
Right.
and so he finally bankrolled this label, and they had a lot of money at their disposal.
Yeah.
They had one of I think one of the first huge Neve consoles in the Midwest.
Really?
Yeah, it was huge. In fact, David Bowie even recorded there when he.
And was that in Milwaukee or
Yeah,
Green Bay?
No, it was right here. in
Okay.
Milwaukee.
All right.
But anyway, so that band. I started singing in that band, but even early on, I really wasn't much of a singer. It took me a long time to find my voice. But luckily, we hooked up with Junior Brantley.
Right.
Who?
And Junior is from here too.
Right, Junior
Yeah.
is from here.
And Junior isn't Junior Brantley still doing his thing in Vegas or something?
God
Yeah.
bless him. He's 87 and
That's amazing.
He's still doing his thing. And after we broke up, you know, he hooked up with the Thunderbirds.
Right.
He toured
Played with them for a while, yeah.
Then he hooked up with Jimmy Vaughn. He did.
Right,
He
right.
recorded and
Right.
toured with Jimmy,
Mhm.
and even did a little work with Stevie. Right.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And he did.
Didn't he
did,
play?
He
He
did
played
Room
with
Full-
Sonny Boy.
Yes, he also
Yeah.
did Roomful of Blues.
Right,
He
right,
toured
right.
with them for a long time.
Right. I
But
remember.
yes, his
Didn't he, as a teenager?
Sonny Boy lived here in Milwaukee, I
Right.
think, towards the end of his career.
Right. Right.
And Junior's first gig was with Sonny Boy.
And how old was he?
You know, he must
13
have
or
he
something?
I'm guessing he must have been in his late teens. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And and he only got the gig because Sonny Boy needed a keyboard player, and Junior had a keyboard, and, and so he wound up doing the gig, and he wound up, touring with Sonny Boy,
Really?
up into the into the Fox Valley,
Wow.
Appleton, Oshkosh,
Crazy.
Green Bay.
So what did he say about him?
Oh, well,
you remember?
Yeah. His famous story that I love is that Sonny Boy would take a Tom Collins glass,
Right,
and
right.
fill it with old Granddad or
Right.
some fucking rock
Jet, yeah.
and he would drink out of that, and when that glass was empty, it was break time.
Wonder how long his sets went.
Right.
15 minutes.
But he said Sonny Boy was an immaculate dresser,
Yeah.
just immaculate.
Right.
And he also said Sonny Boy didn't even need a band.
No, I'd heard that too. He'd just fire the band, and
he could do the gig all by himself.
Right.
The band was just incidental.
Right. Right.
And
I'd heard that from a few different people. Yeah.
And Junior, when we hooked up with him, he was still doing Sonny Boy's stuff.
Wow. You say he was doing his songs?
He was doing some of his material.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip.
And that was a thrill. I first followed Junior. Junior was, like I say, 11 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of one of my hometown heroes. Early on, he had one of the coolest R&B bands in the region.
Wow.
And he didn't have a bass player. He played keyboards and sang. Mm-hmm. He had a sax player, Kent Ivey from I think he was from Louisiana, and then he had a drummer and a vibes player.
Wow.
A vibes player in an R&B band.
That's wild.
And it was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
And Junior had a number of regional hits.
Did he really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Really cool stuff. He did a cover of Rufus Thomas's "Walking the Dog." He did "Going Back to Birmingham." He was a real cutting edge guy. I mean, he was into what was happening now.
Yeah.
That was always Junior's forte. He wanted to be what was happening.
Right.
And that showed up in Short Stuff too when he was playing with Short Stuff. I mean, he was the first guy on the block to have synthesizers.
Interesting.
And he had one of those those stick.
Oh yeah.
Keyboards.
Right.
Played on.
Who was it? Wasn't it Edgar Winter that had one of those?
Yeah. But Junior played the hell out of it. Anyway, so Short Stuff. The point of this part of the story is that Junior could sing.
Yeah.
He was a singer.
Yeah.
And thank God, because I was trying to find my way as a singer.
Right.
And, but I was writing tunes and singing some of my own material. And then Junior would also write. Junior wrote some great funky R&B stuff.
Now, is that when you started writing in Short Stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, I started writing before Short Stuff. Actually, towards the new blues era, I tried my hand at writing.
Okay.
But I didn't really start writing in earnest until Short Stuff.
Okay. So did Junior kind of inspire you to start writing?
Not so much. I just, is like Johnny Hooker said, it was in me and it had to
come out. Right. Well, you're a great writer. I love your writing.
I was driven.
Yeah.
I was, my whole career, when people ask me how I survived, all that time in music, I just said I was driven. I had no choice.
Yeah.
I had no choice.
Right.
I was driven. There was nothing else I wanted to do, nothing else I could do.
Right.
It was just
You sound like me now.
Thank you. Well, all of us guys are survivors.
Yeah.
You have to be driven.
You have to be driven.
You have to
yes,
be
you do.
driven to put up with it.
Otherwise, it won't happen.
Yeah. And I had this incredible need to express myself. Therapy and 12-step programs came later.
Right.
But so that was my way.
That was your AA.
That was my AA, was getting all that stuff out.
No, I hear you.
And that's what I did, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I mean, most of my songs never, I'm sure you know this, but anybody who writes, it's like anything. You write for every 25 or 50 songs you write, maybe one is worth of shit.
Worth of shit, right?
Yeah, so the rest of them just languish in obscurity,
right?
And I have stacks of notebooks and yellow pads.
Now, is that part of what motivated you to move to Nashville? Writing?
Okay. After 15 years of Short Stuff, I was burnt out.
That's a long time.
I was burnt out.
That was a long time.
I was burnt out. I needed a break. I just was burnt out. I didn't. The thought of stepping in the van and driving up fucking Highway 41 or 94 again.
Right.
I couldn't.
Now, were you guys working like you know, all pretty much the whole time?
Oh yeah.
So
Short stuff was
like 7 nights a week,
we
practically.
we worked constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, we,
And
you know,
15 years of that is a long
yeah.
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was not uncommon to work 4 or 5 nights a week, and then in the summer, of course, even more.
Right, right.
You just nonstop.
Right.
And that went on for 15 years, and numerous personnel changes and numerous musical changes too.
Right.
During that course, you know, that was during the 70s, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I really came of age musically during that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was being influenced by all of the stuff that was going on around me, especially the black funk,
Mm-hmm.
the jazz funk, you know,
Mhm.
like the Crusaders
Right.
stuff.
So you
Eddie-
really branched out from
Eddie
just
here-
being a blues freak.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We started out as a blues. Short Stuff started out as a Stone Cold blues band,
Right.
but as time went on, we morphed into something else. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was one of the things that hurt us, because the labels, even, you know, at the time, even though we were signed to this independent label, whenever they would try to shop us to a major label, you know, the major labels didn't know how to slot us.
Right.
You
What
know?
are they?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a common thing,
Yeah.
especially in that era.
Yeah.
That was a really common
Yeah.
thing. You had bands like, Commander Cody or Amazing Rhythm Aces. They were another one like you guys.
It only took 5 minutes, folks.
No, it was 2 minutes. Come on. But you know, that was a real common thing in the 70s. That the labels wouldn't quite know how to pigeonhole you,
Right.
and so they kind of felt like they didn't know how to market.
Yeah. And at one point, we really got away from the blues. I mean,
Yeah.
we were. Rick Estrin, you know, Rick Estrin has heard some of the stuff from that era, and,
Right.
And
He's the one that turned me on.
Yeah, he described it kind of as pop R&B. You know? In fact, he even said there were some songs that kind of reminded him of Steely Dan. You know,
Interesting.
And that's how far away from blues
from it you
we
got.
were.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it was really, we had some amazing musicians that passed through the band during that time, and I mean, these guys taught me a lot about music.
Yeah.
I still owe a lot to one of the guitar players from that era, who just passed away about a month ago, Mark Lamar.
And wasn't
he
Solberg in the band for a while?
Solberg joined.
was in there for a
He was in the
while,
band
yeah.
for a couple of years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was a really creative time for
Yeah.
me. For me,
So it was mainly you and
Junior.
Junior doing this.
Yeah, we were the mainstays of the band.
Yeah.
We were the guys that we went the distance the whole 15 years, but
Right.
other guys came and went.
Right.
But I learned a lot. Like I say, after Short Stuff broke up, I took a year off. In fact, I enrolled. By that time, I had gotten clean. I had gone into treatment and gotten clean.
Right.
And I thought I might want to be an alcohol and drug counselor. And there was a rehabilitation center in this town that offered a training program. And just to get away from music, I enrolled in the training program to become a drug and alcohol counselor. And that lasted for a year. But after that ended, after I graduated from that, I realized that that's what I needed. I just needed to recharge my batteries.
Yeah.
And I immediately jumped back into music. But at that point, I was just kind of trying out different things. And one of the things I tried out was with Billy Flynn.
Right, the Future
We did a little trio,
Right.
no bass, just drums, Billy and myself.
Right, that was a great band.
It was killer.
Yeah, that
It
was a killer band.
and it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, and that was where I got hip to you.
Yeah.
Estrin gave me a tape of you guys, and I went, "These guys are dangerous."
That was before
Yeah.
Dig 3.
Right, exactly. Before Dig 3.
Dig 3 is doing it 30
Right,
years later.
right,
Which
right.
And they're doing it great, by the way.
Yeah, we're playing with them day after tomorrow.
I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah, yeah.
Say hi to Jerry and
Okay,
Andrew.
I will. Yeah.
Anyway, so we that was kind of like almost even while I was in that drug and alcohol counselor, I would play with Billy and Tom as the Future Amics once a week. Just for kicks, shits and grins. But once I got out of that program, I realized I wanted to get back into it just really seriously. But I didn't want to stay in Milwaukee. I felt like I kind of did everything there was to do around here. Right. So I started looking at my options. Looked at New York. Too big, too crazy. Looked at LA. Too big, too spread out, too crazy. Nashville. I had been in Nashville in and out in the early '70s, just kind of checking out the scene during the whole outlaw country thing that was coming up at that point, early '70s, and I liked Nashville. It was a city about the size of Milwaukee. It was manageable, a manageable city to live in and to negotiate and to navigate. You could get from one end to the other end in 20 minutes on the freeway, very much like Milwaukee. Right. The cost of living was cheap. Right. And of course the music, goes without saying.
Music City.
Every third person was in the business.
Right. Right.
And every fourth person was brilliant. Brilliant. And everything was going on. Everybody thinks of music Nashville in terms of country, but it's not. It's so much more than that. Yeah. And by that time, by the mid '80s, when I moved there, it was just. A lot of people, in fact, a lot of old rock and rollers were moving from the West Coast to relocate.
Tracy Nelson moved there.
Tracy was from here originally.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I reconnected with her in Nashville.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And but so I moved to Nashville and I stayed there for 2 years. And during that course, I did everything I intended to do in Nashville. I got a really good writing deal with Bug Music. I toured with David Allan Cole.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I played the local scenes. I played with a lot of really cool people. Tony Joe White, John Hyatt.
Wow.
Tracy. Webb Wilder.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was a really, really happening scene.
You recorded with him, I guess.
I did,
too. Yeah, right.
And I even put together a Nashville version of the Future Amics.
Interesting.
I called it the Future Amics.
And who was in that?
It was Bill Schwartz.
Oh, I know Willie. Yeah. Great drummer.
He was playing with Tom Paul Glazer.
Right.
I had heard that. That was his money gig.
I'd heard that.
But he
I didn't know you guys played together.
Yeah, we hooked up and I put that. He was my drummer. Bob Britt was on guitar. Bob Britt was playing with Leon Russell at the time.
Wow.
That was his money gig.
Too much.
He's playing with Dylan now.
Wow.
So
I had no idea.
All these guys, especially Bob. Bob played with Leon. He played with of course with Dylan. He played with Creedence Clearwater Wild.
John Fogerty.
John Fogerty. He was with John's for a while.
Wow.
He played with Delbert McClinton.
What a trip.
So he was one of these.
Delbert was kind of based out of there. He still is based out of there.
No, he wasn't at the time.
Really?
No, he wasn't at the time. But I didn't know he was.
Yeah, he's based out of Nashville now.
Okay. Yeah. I sat in with Albert Collins in Nashville. Wow. Albert Collins let a harmonica player sit in.
That's
I mean,
cool.
I look at it now and I still kind of go, whoa, how did that happen? How did that happen?
Yeah.
But
so did Nashville really help your writing in terms of?
It did.
Just focus.
It really did, because I mean it is a writer's mecca.
Yes, it certainly is.
And I was rubbing shoulders with some incredible.
You know Gary Nicholson, by any
Yes.
chance? Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I know Gary a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a great writer.
And Mike. He was in the
Henderson?
Mike Henderson.
Right.
Yeah, I almost put a band together with Mike.
Really?
Yeah. But,
okay.
But he kind of backed off.
Didn't he pass or something?
Yeah, he died recently.
Right.
But he was there, and he had a gig, a Monday gig at the Bluebird Cafe, a blues gig.
Oh, okay.
And Bill Schwartz used to play with him there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I lost contact with Bill quite a while back, but we've talked a few times since he left California.
Okay, and I did an album during that time. A guy by the name of Bobby Fields, who was a producer with Webb Wilder, I hooked up with him, and he wanted to do a song demo, an album's worth of material. So we recorded an album's worth of material with the Nashville Futuramics.
Wow!
And later on, Bobby got a call to produce a John Mayall album. And John was kind of making a comeback.
Right, and he did one of your tunes off.
And he was looking for material, and Bobby played him that song demo, and he picked one of the songs off.
What song did he do?
It was a song called "Without Her."
Oh you did that with the Futuramics originally.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was I bore that time in Nashville bore a lot of fruit. It really did.
Yeah, and you had people recording your songs around the time of Short Stuff too, didn't you? Because didn't Johnny Winter do
Johnny Winter,
Why Buy the Cow or something?
Yeah. Well, he did a tune called "Talk Is Cheap."
Oh, "Talk Is Cheap."
Right.
Somebody did the "Why Buy the Cow When the Milk Is Free"? Who was that did that?
Nobody that I know.
I thought somebody well known did that.
No.
Okay.
But by that time, things were starting to kind of like blossom in the way of my songwriting, other people covering my stuff. I mean, I wasn't like pitching stuff, but
people were kind of getting hip to you.
Yeah, things were tapes and things were making.
I think Lonnie Brooks did one of your tunes.
Lonnie Brooks did. A Legendary did some songs. Rick did songs of mine. Some of the regional bands, Lamont Cranston did songs of mine. Currently, I'm currently retired, officially retired.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a momentum has kind of continued. Right now, there are 3 regional bands in the process of covering songs of mine, and Rick and I just co-wrote a song, and it's on his new album.
Oh, good.
And I didn't have anything to do with that. Rick just wanted to. He remembered hearing the song, and he wanted to do. It was a song that was not addiction specific, but it touched on and had elements of recovery in it.
Okay, the monkey one.
The circus is still in town. And he wanted to make it an all addiction song. And so I said, do whatever you want. So he turned it into an all addiction song. And it's on the current album. And I had nothing to do with that. So I'm just kind of.
Well, I've always loved your writing, man. When I heard the Futuramic stuff, I heard you doing all original songs on that.
Yes.
And you had a lot of great songs on that. And great performances, too.
Yeah. On that last album I did with
Joel
Patterson, we did all.
Yeah, you did some of those same songs.
We retooled them.
Right. Now, how did you and Joel Patterson connect?
Well, when I came back to Milwaukee, I put together my own band. For the first time, I put a band with my name on it, and I called it the Jim Liban Blues Combo. And Joel was in one of the early versions of that combo. He wasn't in the first version, but he, in fact, Matt Scholar's brother Larry.
I remember when Larry was playing with you.
Larry was in the first version of that combo. And then after he left, I was auditioning guys, and Joel showed up, and Joel, as soon as I heard Joel play, you're hired, you want to play.
Well, where did he come out of?
He came out of Madison.
Did he really?
He's just one of these guys that is just...
He's like way up there. He's in kind of Duke Robillard. But he was playing.
He was playing bass in Madison.
Really?
Yeah. And this gig that he got with me as a guitar player, he said was his first gig as a guitar player.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So that was the genesis of how that connection. So he stayed with me for a couple of years, and then I went through some personnel changes again, But when he approached me, it was about 10 years ago, I guess. He had, by that time he had relocated to Chicago.
Right.
And but we were still in touch, and we were still doing gigs together.
Yeah.
And he said, I'd love to do an album on you. And I said, fine.
So he kind of put it together.
Yeah. Oh, he put the whole thing together.
All right.
I just had to show. All I had to do was show up.
Yeah.
He picked the tunes. He said, let me have some of your material. And the way he tells the story, and I think it was true, I literally gave him a shopping bag full of cassettes and CDs. And he went through it all, a lot gig cassettes, and he sifted through it all, and he picked all the tunes, and we rearranged a lot of them, and we wrote some new tunes. And,
well, he's kind of like you. I mean, I kind of equate you guys as being similar in the sense of that you guys have this lock on certain styles.
Yeah.
And really kind of get into that one style. I mean, like somebody's say, like he might take a, or I should use you more as an example. You might take, Junior Wells or Big Walter
or
Cotton or Little Walter,
right.
And you really get into your own kind of thing within their style, and that to me is a really special thing.
Thank you. And I kind of experienced that as to use that word channeling.
Right.
I've been fortunate to be able to channel some of those spaces of those guys that I listen to so much.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I mean, somebody asked me, well, how do you, when you channel Junior Wells, where do you go, in your head?
Yeah.
And I said, I just go crazy. I just I transform into a crazy person, and I play crazy.
That's interesting because I don't, I never think of it like that.
Junior was crazy.
I know he was crazy.
He was in orbit. His playing was so crazy.
Huh.
And on my good days, I can get into that space.
Well, I can see what you're talking about. And I see what you're talking about, where it's kind of almost comical.
Yeah, in fact, Rick says that's some of his favorite stuff that I do when I channel. I channel.
Oh, it's
Junior.
wicked. Yeah, it's wicked. I remember Rick told me a story a long time about being in the back room at Teresa's or something, and Junior was up on a beer crate watching you play.
Yeah, that's the way he tells it. I wasn't there to experience it that way.
Yeah,
but he tells.
But
he
says he was up there looking and checking you out. Yeah.
Actually, you had a chance to jam with him.
Did you?
When Matt Scholar got married, he hired Junior to play at his reception. And
so how did Junior take what you did?
Well, it's funny. When we were playing, it was Matt, Junior, and me. We were all on the same stage, trading stuff, And I don't remember his reactions. I really don't. I guess I was too in the moment. Yeah. So I can't say that I have a real vivid recollection of him reacting to me. Mm-hmm. Trying to
do his
get in his
trip.
space.
Yeah, right. Because that's a weird thing. I mean, I've done that. Like when I'm playing in front of Cotton or something, I almost will avoid trying to play like him.
Okay.
That's kind of where I go.
Okay.
When I would play in front of him, is I would almost avoid going into his zone.
Yeah.
Because I felt like maybe he would get strange about it. Or something.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, I did gigs with Cotton from time to time over my career, and he was a huge influence on me.
Same here.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, especially from the time I was a kid. I used to listen to WLAC, and I used to buy these phonograph record packages that they would sell. Right. And I remember getting in one of those packages. I remember getting a 45 of Cotton doing Slam Hammer.
Oh yeah.
And it was
Johnny Young,
it was different from the album. It was
really,
yeah. They edited it on the album.
Interesting.
And on the 45, it was much longer.
Ooh.
And
I want to hear that.
But the point of that is that I heard that, and it just took the top of my head off.
Oh yeah, same here.
And I was young, and it was the energy that Cotton put out there that spoke to me as a kid, as a teenager. That same energy is what just lit a fire in me, you know? And I related to it. I felt that way. You know, ferocious.
Oh yeah.
Bold. And,
you
know,
he was so in your face.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And that's what just propelled my especially my early playing. I was so.
Well, I've always heard a lot of him.
Yeah.
In what you do.
And I tried to channel that on that album I did with Joel also.
Right.
Interesting story. I did one of my early 45s of James was a thing called Laying in the Weeds.
Oh, right.
An instrumental called Laying in Weeds.
Right.
And I wanted to pay tribute to that record on the album I did with Joel.
Right.
So I wrote a song and I tooled it to be a Cotton tribute, but not aping Cotton. You know, I tried to think like I perceive Cotton to think.
Play in his style,
to think in that space once again.
Right.
And but I wanted to call it Cottonmouth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, right before our album came out, Iglauer released a Cotton album, Cottonmouth, and I was just crushed. I
took such a good title.
It was close, but no cigar.
Right.
And so I had to rethink the title, and I came up with Cotton. After I came up with all these different cotton this, cotton that, cotton, and I finally came up with cotton weed because those guys smoked a lot of weed. So
cotton weed, and it's laying in the weeds, right?
So it was a marriage, a good marriage, of what I was trying to do, but.
Well, you really have a knack for it, though.
And well, I have to give credit where credit is due to Joel too, because when we were arranging some of the songs and coming up with some of the ideas, especially for the instrumentals, he came up with a groove that was so Albert Collins-ish. Mm-hmm. We eventually wound up calling it Cold Stuff. But I always wanted to do one of those just fucking in your face shuffles, that Albert was so famous for,
right?
Just those unrelenting shuffle grooves,
right?
And we came up with that groove, a groove like that, and I had a chance to play all these kind of organ-based riffs, which I always done too. Going back to McDuff and McGriff and all. Even going back to the New Blues, we used to do All About My Girl. And,
really?
And I used to love those.
That's interesting because a lot of harmonica players after that picked up on that.
Yeah.
I think Cotton even did something.
Oh yeah,
like
for
that.
sure.
Cotton did that.
Oh, for sure.
With Tucker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But anyway, so I finally had a chance to do a groove like that with Joel.
Right.
And it was just so much fun. Just so much fun.
Who was your drummer on that stuff? I'm trying to remember.
That Alex Hall.
Okay.
He was the engineer. He engineered it all.
Oh,
he has a studio in Chicago.
Okay.
And he does a lot of roots and all those guys are into roots stuff, like 50s roots stuff. I mean, that's their forte. And they record everything on tape, everything at once in the room.
That's great.
Yeah, they get
like 2-inch tape.
Yeah, it was like
quarter-inch?
I think it was. I might have even been quarter-inch.
Quarter-inch, yeah.
But
but analog done.
That was that was the best sounding album I've ever done, bar none.
That's a real good album.
It's the sound, the room.
What's
sound.
the name of that album again?
What do we call it? I think it's just Jim Liban and Joel Patterson.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great record.
I think it was Jim Liban with the Joel Patterson trio. I think
something like that. Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah.
But it was anyway. So boy, that kind of has jumped around here a lot in my career. But
well, no, but I mean, you know, I kind of wanted to get it. We got into a lot of, you know, most of the different projects that you've had, but I wanted to just get some snapshots of like moments that really, how can I say it? Moments that were really transcendental musically, in terms of either sitting in with people, like you're talking about, sitting in with some of those early country blues guys, or you know, playing with Albert Collins, or playing with your own group, or just times when it really, you know.
Well, one of the, obviously there are a lot of them, you know, I mean, in almost a 60-year career. But one of the things that just came to the forefront of my mind is when I was doing the combo, the Jim Liban Blues combo. One of the I think I released 4 CDs during that period, and one of them we did was Hubert Sumlin was living here in Milwaukee.
Right.
And I was doing a fair amount of gigs with Hubert, you know, all across the city, and so out of the city, and I decided to have him guest on one of the CDs I did, and it was a song I wrote specifically for him. He had a pet saying, you know, "Ain't that something?" You know, that he said that, you know, at least 25 times a day.
Right.
You know, "Ain't that something?" You know? So, you know, it was like low hanging
fruit.
Right.
You couldn't miss that one.
Let's write a song.
That's a big part of your songwriting, I've noticed, is taking a saying and turning it into a song, which is very cool.
So I wrote a song specifically around that. It called "Ain't That Something," and I even wrote verses, you know, that were kind of snapshots of Hubert's life.
Oh, okay.
You know, one of the verses was, "My wife almost died of a heart attack. She was going down slow, but she bounced right back." So when we were recording this, Hubert was on the mic with me as I'm singing it, and he's kind of got a running commentary on everything I say, you know. And
that's great.
And he was talking over the song. So when we went back to mix it, we had to edit a lot of that stuff out, you know, and keeps the stuff that kind of fit in between between the lyrics.
That's great. Yeah.
But one of the things I said when, you know, my wife almost died of a heart attack. She was going down slow, but she bounced right back. And Hubert goes, "She did, man. You know, she did. She was going down slow, but she bounced." Yeah, and so he was, you know, as ad-libbing all this stuff as during the whole recording of the song.
That's perfect.
And it was just priceless. Just priceless.
That's actually an old blues tradition. Remember when they used to have songs and they'd put somebody else in the song to like answer the person as they were singing?
Rick's got a song like that on his new album.
There were songs like with these women would be singing, and they go, "You kind of an ugly," you know, that kind of.
He's got a song called "Whatever Happened to Dobie Strange."
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
And he's got all these people, you know, chiming in on it. Yeah,
poor Dobie.
It's really funny.
I wouldn't want to be Dobie.
But anyway, so that was just a really, like I say, kind of
moment.
Yeah, a moment that you know was just spontaneous.
Right.
And then he also played on the song too. I wanted to feature him on playing on the song. Unfortunately, his playing at that point wasn't really consistent.
Right.
You know, so we must have done about probably 8 or 9 takes, passes of him playing on the song. Yeah. And it was funny because in the studio, you know, when you go in the studio, it's for most guys, it's, the show business goes out the window and you concentrate on the song.
Right.
Well, Hubert, it was like a show for him. He was in the studio doing all of his shtick, and go, whee, and he always used to. I used to get a kick out of him. He'd do those slides, and he said, "That's my trademark,"
Right.
But so anyway, the song, like I say, because he wasn't real consistent.
Right.
We didn't get one take that was a consistent.
But were you able to mix them?
I had with the engineer. We literally had to cut and paste the whole.
Did it come out good though?
It did come out good, and I think it came out really a real good representation of Hubert.
Right.
But we really had to cut and paste.
Well, sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Now, you went and saw Little Walter one time, didn't you? Or you went to go see him, and he was...
Yes.
He was, didn't show or something? What was it?
I went down with a bunch of friends. He was on a package show here in Milwaukee at a ballroom. It was Howlin' Wolf, Walter, and a local psychedelic group called the Shags. And unfortunately... another close but no cigar moment. Walter got lost on the way up here, and by the time he got to the venue, the promoter was pissed, and to punish Walter,
wouldn't let him play.
He bumped him from the show.
Wow.
And that's the bad news. The good news is that after Walter we were privy to Walter's, temper when he got bumped.
Right.
He was pissed.
I bet he was.
And it was just like all that stuff you hear in the studio.
Right.
I mean, he was swearing a blues.
I bet he was. Yeah.
But after he calmed down,
you got to hang with him?
Yeah. He came up with a guitar player. To this day, I don't know who the guitar player. I've tried to figure out, and I've talked to various people who have studied Walter, and to try to figure out who that guitar player would have been, but nobody really can pinpoint who it might have been.
Right.
But anyway, after Walter calmed down, we approached him and started talking to him. And he was very gracious, and he was very outgoing, and he talked to us, and he gave us all his autograph.
Wow!
And then that was it. Yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
I never heard him play, but
you got to at least hang with him a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit from that was pretty special.
Yeah. But you pretty much got to see everybody else prior to that, right?
Yeah, and did shows with them, I had a chance to sit in with Muddy on about 3 different occasions. That
must have been special.
That was a thrill.
Yeah. Who was in the band during that time? Was that Osher?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I even put up Osher at my place one time.
Oh, okay.
And that was another
experience.
Strange experience. And God bless him.
He was an unusual guy.
God bless him. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
But he was, all those guys at that time were just raging alcoholics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Raging.
Yeah. Muscle white.
And I put Paul up, my wife and my infant son, and Paul was so drunk that he passed out on my kitchen floor.
Jeez.
But before he passed out, he was hitting on my wife.
Of course.
Yeah.
The blues man's wife.
Did not leave a good taste in my mouth, folks.
No, definitely not.
Decades later, I told that story to Rick. Rick was
right.
really buddies with
Right, yeah, he was.
And Rick apologized to me for
Paul's
behavior. And he said, yeah, Paul could be an immense asshole at times.
Right.
And he took it upon himself to apologize. But
Right.
by that time, you know, it was ancient history. But it did not leave a good taste in my mouth.
No, I guess not.
Yeah.
Who else?
But he was a great player.
Yeah, he was a great player.
I mean, all props to him.
Yeah.
He broke a barrier for sure.
Sure did.
The first white guy in Muddy's band.
Yeah.
And first white harp player.
Yeah.
And he did
kind of total trial by fire.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did pave a way. You know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
God bless him. You know?
Yeah.
And he was, you know, he was an incredibly talented guy too. You know?
Yeah, sure was.
And his mastery of the piano, the guitar, harp,
Right.
singing, writing.
Did you play with Jimmy Rogers at all?
I did. Jimmy came through town one time, and Tom Rada used to book Jimmy.
Right.
And I think Madison Slim had been playing with Jimmy at the time.
Right.
But for some reason, Slim couldn't make the gig, and Tom asked me if I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and, you know, did a crash course on Jimmy's material.
Right.
And listened to all of his records and tried to learn all of Walter's stuff,
Right,
or at least,
right.
you know, passable.
Right.
And I got on the gig, and Jimmy didn't do any of them. He didn't do one of the songs
That's
that I
perfect.
studied. Yeah,
That is perfect.
But,
yeah.
but it was cool.
Yeah, that's a trip. Yeah. Well, sounds like you've been kind of a pioneer, I think, around here for blues. You know, I
think
mean, of your generation.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I can own that now.
Yeah.
I think I put the blues harmonica on the map in this region,
in this area. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. It was a matter of timing. I happened to be. The timing was right. There was really, you know, I was early enough on the scene to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't think of myself as, you know, pioneering it necessarily. Once again, I was just driven by my need to express myself.
Well, yeah, and I think that whole thing you're talking about, you know, getting into these different cat styles and having that be the fuel to kind of, you know, to make a career out of it is a big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And anybody who can make a living playing music is blessed.
playing harmonica
And playing, as Rick says, playing a child's toy.
Right, right, exactly. It's not an easy way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was blessed. I was lucky. However you want to characterize it, I was able to eke out a living.
Right.
And I'll tell you, you know, I decided to retire during the COVID shutdown.
Right, right.
And,
Which a lot of people did.
Yeah, and the way
it
came about was that, you know, when the shutdown came and everything stopped.
And everybody kind of started questioning what they were doing.
Yeah, and after, and I kind of dug it for a while.
Yeah.
You know, I really did. I dug, you know, I certainly don't dig all the harm that that COVID produced, and all the deaths. But I did like the fact that everything stopped.
Yeah.
It really was a moment. And I mean, I could walk the streets in Milwaukee. I live downtown.
Right.
And the streets downtown are busy.
Yeah.
And I could walk the streets at the height of the shutdown, and it was like I was the last person. In my mind, it was like a Twilight Zone
episode.
It
was a weird
I'm the last person on earth, and I could just walk in the streets, and there were no cars.
Yeah, it was very strange.
And I kind of dug that.
Yeah.
You know, there was part of that isolationist part of me that dug that.
No, I got you.
You know,
it was a weird thing because I think a lot of people reassessed everything when that happened.
Well, after a year of not playing, And I wasn't practicing. I just stopped. I didn't do anything for a year. I thought, okay,
Right.
this is a good excuse to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And after a year of not playing, I kept waiting for the bug to come back to play, and it didn't. It just didn't come back.
Interesting.
I did not feel the need to go out and play anymore.
Right.
So it was then I thought, well, maybe this is a sign from the universe that it's time to hang up that part of my musical life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I eventually then I just made it an official announcement to my circle of friends that I'm retiring. You know,
And how
from
old
playing,
are you?
I'm retiring from playing out.
How old are you?
I'm 76 now.
Okay.
So
So
whenever
that was like 70. You were 73 or something.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
And but I after more reflection, I realized I didn't want to just turn my back on my instrument completely.
Right.
So I decided, okay, I don't feel the need to play out. I don't have to play out. Don't want to play out. I'm done with that for now. And I do reserve the right to change my mind if I want to. But for now, that's how it feels good. It feels like the right thing. But I didn't want to just turn my back on my instrument, so I decided to discipline myself to practice. For a while, I was doing 7 days a week, an hour and a half every day.
Wow.
But then after a year or two of that, I said, man, I don't maybe have to do 7 days a week. You know, I'll do 5 days a week and give myself the weekends off.
Right. Well, that's pretty good, though. That's pretty good.
What I do now.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's the first thing I do every morning. Once I splash water on my face, and I don't even have my cup of coffee. I used to meditate before the first thing I did when I woke up, but I decided to supplant that with practicing. So that's the first thing I do when I wake up. I practice.
Wow.
For an hour.
That's very.
Then I have my cup of coffee, and then I watch Leave It to Beaver on TV.
Man, that's really something though that you do that. That's great.
Well, once again, and I'm getting a chance to work on all kinds of stuff that I never had time for.
Right.
As a working musician.
That's exactly what happened to me during COVID too. Yeah. Well, I started working on all the stuff I'd never tried before, like Sonny Terry and
oh really? Wow.
Yeah,
See,
and that was like a real challenge.
Okay, yeah. I never went that Sonny Terry route. I admired what he did, but
I never could do it. So
I never could do it, and I never really cared to do it. I was always, you know, moved by the amplifier.
Yeah,
that's what moved me.
Same here
as a kid.
Yeah.
But I did get a chance to start working on technique. On positions, on learning riffs, learning songs, even doing some writing. Now I've continued to write, but I haven't finished a lot of stuff. You know,
yeah.
But I still write stuff down. I write down ideas down in case I get motivated to finish. Because since I'm not playing out anymore, I'm not motivated to finish stuff. But I don't want to let go of that,
right? So
I still write down ideas, you know.
Yeah. I did a lot of that during the pandemic too.
Okay.
Just starting songs and you know.
Yeah. So if I ever do come out again, if I decide to come out of retirement,
right?
I'm going to have a whole bunch of new shit to present, you know. But I don't know if that'll happen because.
Well, let's talk about having you on a blowout soon.
Well, we can talk about it, but don't get your hopes up. Because right now, I just like where I'm at.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay.
And I, every now and then, now seeing you guys last night,
right?
You know, when I see somebody, band that's so good,
yeah,
and the music is so good, and it just sucks me in.
Yeah.
There are times that I think, oh man, that would be fun. But then I talk myself out. I say, because from the moment, as you know,
right,
on a gig day, from the moment you get up, you're on the job.
Right, that's right.
It starts.
Amen to that.
It ain't just that 2
No.
hours on
No.
stage.
That's
It's
only
all
a tiny
day
little
long.
part of it.
And
Yeah.
see, that's the shit that
Right.
I
That's what wears you out.
don't want to
Right.
do anymore.
I got you,
You
man.
know, just
I totally got you.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, check out my song "Ghosted."
I did. I listened to it on the way here.
Did you listen
I
to
did,
it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And I listened. I started listening to the album on
Yeah,
the way here.
okay.
And I obviously I'm only about a few
Right,
five or six
yeah.
songs in, but it sounds great.
Well, thanks,
Absolutely.
man.
I want to tell you, Mark. I know you've been out there knocking your head against the walls for decades, all your life, and I know you've been striving to be accepted by the big boys all your life.
Right.
You are one of the big boys.
Well, thank you, man.
You are.
Thank you
there-
so much.
You are as
That-
good as anybody
That means a lot. man.
out there.
That really means a lot. Well,
I
thank you.
mean it.
Yeah.
You have arrived.
Well, thank you, man.
You have arrived.
Yeah, that means
I
a lot.
I want you to know.
It really does,
Yes.
man.
Yes.
Yeah, that means a whole lot for me, Jim.
Because I know what it is to want to be accepted by,
Oh, yeah.
by your peers.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, thank you, man.
You are here.
I
You
appreciate
are
that.
one of the guys now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot, man. Really does.
My pleasure.
Well, Jim, it was a
This
pleasure.
this is a
man.
legacy.
I know.
Of
This is COVID.
Yes, it
yes.
is.
And it's coming back, man.
It's not going
Yeah.
away. It
No,
will. It
it's
will
coming
be with
back
us.
really big time right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you will. I mean, luckily we've got the vaccines.
And there's a new one they're approving.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did get it
In the
once.
next week.
Did get COVID once, and it hung on for a couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable shaking hands again. You know.
Well, you're smart.
Well,
You're smart to do that.
I'm old,
Mhm.
and at this stage of the game, it takes longer to heal from anything.
Yes.
And I don't want to get sick from anything. I'm not
Right.
turning into Howie Mandel yet, but I am much more.
Or Howard Hughes.
Or Howard Hughes. I am much more cognizant of my surroundings
Right.
all the time.
Well, you gotta
and
be.
what I'm touching. And,
You gotta be.
And
It's a good way to be.
I don't, because it takes longer to get well if I get something.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely,
the
man.
body does not respond like it used
Yeah.
to.
Well, we don't need it. That's for sure, man.
This vehicle is breaking down and wearing out.
And the parts can't necessarily be replaced. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, man.